Hello everyone, welcome to our introductory video for Math 2430, Calculus 3. In this video, I'm going to go over the course outline a little bit and talk about the things that are going to be required of you, the things that will be required of me, and the things that are really important, like taking exams, and just kind of how we will go through the course on a week-by-week basis. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll kind of just run through my courses a little bit. We'll go through a lot of the aspects of the course that'll be most important, and as we do that, I'll weave in details about the course. So on this home page here that you can find by clicking on the 3x3 grid when you log into my courses, and you can find Math 2430, this will show any announcements that I've posted. You can see one here. I always like to post this where I just have a little note that says things might not be finalized right before the course starts, but you will see important weekly announcements from me. There will be important announcements regarding things that you have to do. If for whatever reason I need to change my office hours or something like that, I'll post an announcement as well. So you should be checking these announcements pretty frequently. One thing that I always like to tell students is that if you want to get announcements and also have access to my courses a little bit more easily, on your smartphone, if you download an app called Brightspace Pulse, it has an orange logo, you can actually go into my courses and you can see announcements that your instructors have posted, and you can actually view course content right there in that app. It's pretty neat. So with that though, these announcements are going to be important to keep an eye on regularly, but let's go ahead and click on content, and this is going to be the most important tab that we see up at the top. So when this opens, we're going to see a whole lot of modules on the left-hand side, and I'm going to use that term regularly. So each of these sections on the left-hand bar, I'm going to call modules. And most of them, as you'll see, are just each week of the semester. I do have a couple in the beginning, and if I scroll all the way down, there's a couple at the end, but what we have here is just weekly modules that you'll click on to see what you have to do each week. I've tried to make it as repetitive as possible, and we'll see that when I click on a couple of those weekly modules. But to start, of course, we have our Start Here module, where I just have a couple links and to some important things and some info for you to look at before you really dive into the course. And you can see that the link to this video that you're watching is right here, so you maybe already found this Welcome Start Here module. Now, if we click on the Schedule and Syllabus and More module, you'll see a handful of things here. The first thing I have is our course schedule. This is just a quick overview of each week, what sections of our textbook we're going to cover, and what's expected of you in terms of assignments and homework. There's our Zoom link for office hours. You can click right here and it'll open up a Zoom link, and these office hours are going to be on Thursday from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. And then I have our textbook, which is actually just easily findable online. It is OpenStax, and that is a free textbook. You can download the PDF. You can even request a physical copy from them, and I think you have to pay for that. But there is a PDF of it, and there is also a nice link here where you can click through different sections and go jump to certain sections and certain chapters. So either format that you prefer is up to you, but we have both right there. I have a little introduction about myself, and then we have our syllabus that you can click on and view right there. The next thing, I'll just go down into our next module that says Exam Proctoring with Honor Lock, and you're going to hear me talk about this a handful of different times throughout the video, but I really want to emphasize that this is one of the most important modules that you'll click on. This module outlines how you're going to take your exams, and the most important thing to remember is that you are always going to click on this Honor Lock link to access your exams. That'll be super important to remember later because it's not an obvious place to go, but that is where you will access exams. You'll see a whole bunch of other things in here. Allowed camera angles, so The way that you set up your webcam is really important for our exams, and if you don't follow those rules, you could be docked points. We have a formula sheet that you're allowed to use on all of your exams, and then there's a whole lot of FAQs and requirements and things like that that you can click through and read on your own. We'll come back to that a little bit later. You can see there's other requirements here. You have to have Google Chrome and so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and go into these weekly modules. I'm actually going to go ahead and click on week number 2 because I think this is a pretty typical week. So what you'll see in the beginning of this module is you'll see a little introduction that talks about what sections we're going to cover and what activities you have to complete. And in this, I just have sub-modules, and in this case there's 4 of them that go through the lecture videos, the lecture notes, the assignments in My Open Math, which is our online homework platform, and then a weekly discussion. This basically outlines what I'm expecting you to do each week, and if I scroll through, actually let's go ahead and just click on each of these. If I click on lecture videos, you can see that there are 3 links to YouTube videos that a colleague of mine has made, and you're obviously expected to watch those because that is how you're going to get the information, the mathematical information. And in conjunction with those lecture videos, you can look at these blank lecture notes, and I recommend even downloading these. You could print them off if you want. You could upload these to a note-taking app on a tablet and work along these in conjunction with the lecture videos. They are sort of paired together, so that's helpful. After you've done all that, there is homework assignments that are in an online platform called My Open Math, but the really nice thing is that I've set the course up so that when you click on one of these, and I'll go ahead and do that, when you click on this, it shows all of the questions right in the same sort of My Courses layout. I know this doesn't exactly look like My Courses, but you don't have to actually log into My Open Math. You don't have to create an account there. You shouldn't have to do any of that. You just sort of have the questions natively in My Courses with this easily clickable link that we were seeing right here. So you can click on these and you can immediately start working on your homework assignments, and that should be pretty straightforward. The last thing that we see for this week is a weekly discussion, and I've been a little bit repetitive in what our weekly discussions will look like, but I do think that they are, again, repetitive but still helpful. There's an awesome content creator called 3 Blue 1 Brown, and there's another awesome content creator that you've probably heard of, Khan Academy, and they actually did a joint video series on multivariable calculus. And 3 Blue 1 Brown is one of my favorite content creators, and so what I want us to be doing in our weekly discussions is I want you to go to this YouTube playlist that I have hyperlinked, and you'll pick a video to watch that relates to the topic that we've covered in that week. With that, you'll then make a discussion post that has a sort of minimum of 5 sentences, and it highlights certain things, and you can read through what I've asked us to do here. But then after you've made that post, you'll reply to your classmates and hopefully spark a discussion about a video that you might have thought was really cool, or they watched a video and then it sparked you to watch that video. And the goal here is just to see multivariable calculus in a little bit different of a sense, more so differently from how our traditional lecture videos will show you multivariable calculus. I want you to be able to see how 3 Blue 1 Brown shows you multivariable calculus, because I think it's a fruitful alternative. And so this is pretty much it for the week. It's pretty much lecture videos with lecture notes to supplement, My Open Math assignments embedded right in My Courses, and sometimes a weekly discussion. We don't have a weekly discussion every week, but most weeks we do. You'll see if I click on week 3, I only have these 3 sub-modules, and there is no weekly discussion. That's because I did not bother putting one in there. So if we look at this week, just to see really quickly, I'll scroll down. You can see it's pretty much the same setup. We have lecture videos, blank lecture notes, links to the MyOpenMath assignments. There's occasionally a quiz at the end of every chapter, so that pops up every once in a while, and those quizzes are sort of weighted differently in your final grade than homework is. But if we continue looking down at these weekly modules, you'll see on the left-hand side we've got week 4, and then we have week 5, which is our unit exam. And this unit exam, you have the entire week to work on it. So you have a whole lot of time to study. There are review assignments that I have made mandatory. I think that'll be super helpful in preparation for your exams. I have a link to our exam formula sheet that you'll be given access to during the exams. And then I have a link here that takes you to the folder where you will upload the work for your exam. So this is not the way you access the exam. If we remember, we have to do that by going back to the exam proctoring with HonorLock module, and we have to click on that HonorLock link. But we have a folder here to upload our handwritten work. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of pause on the content and going through these modules, and I want to click on these 2 tabs up at the top. I want to click on assignments, and I want to click on quizzes. And we're going to start on quizzes, and this is where it's going to be maybe a little bit confusing. In this quizzes tab, we have links to our exams. We have 3 exams during the course, the final, which is cumulative. And it's very natural to think that when you want to go take one of these exams, you click on the quizzes tab, you click on one of these exams, and then you take it. However, doing so is going to ask you to input a password, which I do not give to students. That is purposeful, that is intended. And the point is that the HonorLock system has that password. And so if you come back to content, you go to the exam proctoring with HonorLock module, and you click on this HonorLock link, it will open up and know the password so that once you select the exam, it will effectively do this part for you, where it comes into the quizzes tab, it inputs the password, and you don't have to worry about that because you're going through HonorLock. So the quizzes tab shows the exams, but you won't be able to actually access them even during these weeks that they're available, because you have to click on HonorLock. But once you do that, you'll click on HonorLock and you'll take your exam, and then at the end of the exam, you have to upload your work, because I need to grade your problems. I need to be able to see the work that you've done for each problem. I need to grade it accordingly, give you some partial credit. Maybe you got a problem right, but you didn't show any work, so maybe you don't get much credit or any credit for that. And that work, that PDF of your work, is going to go in the assignments folder in these 3 sort of folders. They don't look like it, but these are sort of like drop boxes. So you'll click on one of these and then upload your work, and then I can go in here myself and I can download all of that and grade it. And there's ample instructions for how to do all of this work submission, and I've noted it being a PDF. You could guess that it's going to involve taking some photos of your work or scanning your work in some way. There's a whole lot of instruction about that, and we'll deal with that outside of the scope of this video. I will go back to the quizzes tab really quickly and mention that there's one quiz in here that doesn't have anything to do with HonorLock, and this is just a form for proctored testing. This is required, and it just kind of goes through some details about proctored testing and has you answer some questions there. There's also an HonorLock practice quiz, which is required, and you have to do that in order to sort of understand the layout and sort of see the ropes of how HonorLock works before we actually take an exam. So let's go back to the content tab, and let's keep looking at some of these weekly modules. We of course have that week 5 is our first exam. We have the MyOpenMath review assignment. We have the formula sheet that you can view, but then it'll be given to you during the exam digitally. You have the folder for clicking here will take you right into the place where you can submit your work for your exam. And if we keep looking through these weeks, you can see week 6, lecture videos, blank lecture notes, a MyOpenMath assignment link. Week 7, same thing, but with a weekly discussion, and so on and so forth. We have exam 2. It's the same looking module as exam 1. And then if we go to the final exam, it again looks very similar. We have some review assignments that are required. We have the link for the final exam work submission. And quite honestly, that's pretty much it on a week-by-week basis. We just have each of these I like to think about it as 3 things that you have to do per week. You have a weekly discussion in most weeks that is done in my courses, and you can view that in the discussions tab, or you can view it within the weekly module by looking at this weekly discussion sub-module, and you can click on that there. So you have the discussions, you have your MyOpenMath assignments, which are in these sub-modules, and then you have exams, which you access with the exam proctoring with HonorLock module. One thing I will note, and I probably should have started with this in the video, but I think I want to point out now what this week looks like. Something that I've done in a lot of online classes for a variety of reasons that I won't get into within this video, but I have actually had our quote-unquote week start on a Tuesday and end on a Monday. There is good reason for that. Like I said, I'm not going to go into that in this video. But with that, what I've done is I've made our discussion posts due on Thursday, and I've made our discussion replies to other students due on Monday. So that way I'm requiring you to check in multiple times per week, which is super important in math courses. I don't want you waiting until Monday night or Sunday night to log in once a week and try to do everything in one go. This is a very fast-paced course. We cover a lot of content per week. It is going to be in your best interest to check in on this class multiple times per week, if not every single day. And so that weekly Tuesday to Monday is pretty standard, but that said, there are some weeks, for example, week 3, where we run into a holiday. And so the week may not run from Tuesday to Monday. In this case, it ends on Sunday instead of Monday. And the most important one here is the final exam. It is a little bit weird, but the entire course ends on a Sunday. So that means our final exam is due on a Sunday, and I heavily emphasize that, and I will continue to heavily emphasize that throughout the course, because I don't want you thinking that the class ends on a Monday and you go to take your final on December 7th, and then the course is already over and you can't access it, and you've now gotten a 0 on your final. Nobody wants that. So keep that in mind. The only other important one is fall break, where all I've done is I've just taken the normal Tuesday to Monday and I have extended it by an entire week so that you have the week before fall break as well as fall break to work on anything that you'd like, and everything will be due for this week on the Monday after fall break. All right, I think that is going to be it. You can click on the grades tab here yourself. I won't do that in this video because I don't want to get into that nitty gritty. But our grade weighting is pretty standard and pretty typical of other math courses. You can view all of that in the syllabus yourself. So with that, I think we're going to call that the end of the video. I hope that this gave you a good sense of what to do in our class and what to expect. I hope you enjoy this course. Calculus 3 has quickly become one of my favorite upper level courses to teach. So I'm very excited to go along this class in conjunction with you. And if you ever have any questions, do not hesitate to shoot me an email. I'll end the video by showing on our course home. You can click right there and it will send an email to me. You can also see my email written right there. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome semester.